One of the things I love about being a property investor is being able to travel the country and the world looking at different properties and partaking in amazing projects. Here I am in the beautiful Bobbejanskloof. Behind me you can see the amazing mountains, the wilderness area, and I'm on a farm that is just spectacular, positioned to really experience nature in all its wonders. And I'm here to help develop some of the hiking huts that we're going to be looking at a bit later. But today this conversation and this topic is all about keys and locks in multi-lets, and especially student accommodation, in ways that enable our tenants to be safe but actually really ensure a proper key tenant re-keying of the house so that our tenants' possessions and our sense of security is as safe as possible. The story goes that many years ago, when I first did my first multi-let, I went and I keyed every door, and I had garden gates so that every student had 4 different keys. They had a front door key, the kitchen gate key, and 2 garden gate keys. So that meant that I had 10 students, which meant that I had 40 keys to cut and to obviously distribute to all the students. It just so happened that within the first 6 months, the one student got robbed of their keys and of their package, and therefore I had to re-key the whole, all those keys to ensure that the safety was kept by the house, such that no one could take those keys that had been stolen and actually now enter. The cost of re-keying those locks, and I was putting new locks in and getting new keys cut, was tremendous. And I realized that if I need to change my locks and my keys every time a tenant moves out, or that a tenant loses, or their stuff gets stolen, it's going to be an absolute nightmare. So I decided to shift over to digital locks, and this video is really just highlighting some of those that I've taken and that have been serving me well. Now, there are many different kinds of locks and digital locks that we can look at, but at the end of the day, what we're really looking for is something that we can change the code to whenever we want. When there's a theft of something, or when a tenant moves out, then we can change all the garden gates, we can change the main entrance gates, such that actually it's just a simple process of just re-changing those digital locks. And in that way, a tenant can't come back into the house when they have exited and actually left the property, which is what I had a few weeks ago. During the lockdown process, one of my ex-tenants from 6 months ago wanted to come back into the property and do their washing, and of course, because they knew the codes, they could, or they attempted to get in, they were obviously stopped. But it made me realize again that this is such an important process, is for us to re-key or recode all of our gates and our main entrances so that it's really possible. I mean, if you just take a look at the general keys that we have here in South Africa, those keys that have a code on them, any tenant can just see what the code is, they can write down the code, and once they exit, they could come back 6 months later and easily get hold of those keys. It's just going to cost them a couple of rand to go to the shop and buy a new key, and then they have access to all of your property as well as all the tenants' possessions. So it's really important that instead of trying to change the locks every time a tenant moves in, it is just going to be so much easier to just change all the codes on the locks, and in that way the digital locks are better. So let's chat a little bit about gates and security in multi-lets, and this is really useful as we want to make sure that our tenants are safe and that we can change the codes very easily if keys are stolen or tenants move out, and we obviously want to prevent them coming back a couple of months later, because that could obviously mean they could steal stuff, or it's just not viable. So digital locks are the best way to do it, and I'm going to share with you some of the ones that I use and the reasons why I use them, and let's get going. So first and foremost, you can see I have a gate here over a kitchen door, and as you can see, it also has a self-closer. And the main driver behind this is that you can now type in a code, and that therefore will open up the gate, right? So here they entered in the code, the gate opens, and in this case now they would have a key, and then they could go into the unit, right? From the inside, they would leave the same way. They would open up their door, unlock it, they would be able to push the button, and in that way the gate would open and they can exit right away. The main reason that we have the self-closer is that we want to make sure that the gate actually closes, and of course when they leave, I can just change the code, and in that way I do not have to replace the key. As you can see at the bottom here, we actually still have a key space, because there might always be the situation where there's no electricity for a long period of time and you still want to lock it with the key, but that's not used a lot. It is an electric lock, which obviously means that, and it's a magnetic lock, which is, the magnet is up there that holds this in. And there's a backup battery, so if it is that the power goes out, there is 7 hours worth of battery to keep this going, because otherwise it could just be open, because if it loses the power for any length of time. What I've also done in this unit is I have made sure that the power to the gates are on a circuit separate from the prepaid meter, such that the gates are always going to be on prior to a prepaid meter running out, because I want to be assured and ensure that the security is safe. So there is one option. You can set it for multiple codes. You could actually have it that each of your tenants has a specific code, and then you just delete that and change it to a new tenant. I have found that in this case there are 5 tenants who stay in here, and I just change that code out when one of them changes, and obviously then everyone else learns a new code. So really efficient way of managing a property that is safe. So I'm wanting to share with you a different kind of keypad lock that I use that is not based on electricity. So this is just mechanic totally, because I always wanted to make sure that if power fails, or if there's some scenario, that I could still access just via the mechanics and not via electricity. So here is the lock. It is a manual mechanic lock. So you basically put in the number and then you turn this and this works. I'll share with you how it works. And there we go, we can go inside. From the inside, it's really easy to manage. All they need to do is just turn that, and therefore that opens and they can go outside. So really simple from the inside. You do not have to push keypads. You can just go straight to turn it open like that. So this is the garden gate. It is raining at the moment. And it allows me to go out. I have another one here. So I also have the digital gates, digital locks by gates, so they can get access to the main road out at the back. And I'm going to quickly show you how we do that one as well. So they're basically coming through. That's where the road is, and here they can punch in their number. And the gate opens, and they can therefore exit, and they can obviously come in the same way. It also has a self-closer, and of course is the same way with backup batteries, so very effective. Once they're in, there's another gate with a self-closer, and they can do the same. There are closers, and as you can see, they cannot get in. So an efficient way to manage the different locks for multi-tenants and multiple units. There we go for this gate for the front door. Some of the things that you're going to see that are really important, that are useful to know, which will be self-closers, which in other words make sure that the gates or the doors close properly, that you can differentiate between digital locks and electrical locks. Digital locks are those that obviously are going to be more based on electricity, so that you're keying in a code and it is going to trigger an electric lock to open your door. You can also have mechanical locks, which you're just keying in a code but there's no electricity involved. You have biometric locks, which are incredibly important if you've got a large number of people and you want to obviously regulate that, such as high numbers of student accommodation. You have a real amazing array of digital locks as well that can be linked to phones, to tags, to cards. I just went one for keypads because that is very universal here in South Africa. And the other more fancy ones are obviously going to cost more, and I was a bit nervous about the entry level for the lower income of the multi-let and of student housing, because they probably don't have fancy phones or smartphones. Some of them might not even have the smartphone, and I didn't also want to do one that needed to be linked to Bluetooth, but I really wanted one that was as simple as me just being able to key in a code. And that's really as simple as that. This is what I've used. The video I'm going to show you, I'm going to take you around, just have a look at the two different types that I'm using, and I hope you enjoy it. And of course, any other suggestions, just let us know.